A soldier arrived unannounced and found his sister with bruises. Don't forget to comment what country you're watching from. Thomas Miranda, a retired Army sergeant, hadn't planned on returning to his hometown so soon. However, a strange call from his mother, filled with uncomfortable silences and evasive answers, unsettled him so much that he took the first flight. He didn't call ahead, he just showed up. As he opened the door to his sister Elena's house, he noticed two things instantly. His brother-in-law, Julien, had an arrogant attitude, and Elena, at the back of the living room, had her face partially covered with makeup that couldn't quite hide the recent bruises. Tom's military instinct kicked in like a coiled spring. "What happened to your face, Elena?" he asked, his voice tense, without even greeting Julien. "I fell down the stairs," she murmured, her eyes fixed on the floor. Thomas didn't believe a word of it, and Julien, without even looking at him, poured himself a coffee as if nothing was wrong. "Clumsiness can be trained too, brother-in-law," he said with a sneer. Thomas looked at him in silence, but inside, he had already made a decision. He wouldn't leave that house until he knew the whole truth. The atmosphere grew heavy. Julien walked around with complete control, commenting on Elena's every move, correcting small things in a tone that was meant to sound friendly, but was laced with venom. Thomas watched everything with trained eyes. It was obvious that his sister was broken inside. He noticed how she flinched every time Julien spoke loudly or got too close. He also noticed that she didn't have her phone in sight, nor access to money in her own home. There were signs everywhere, and he was not going to ignore them. That same afternoon, Thomas asked to speak with Elena alone. At first, she refused, her fear visible. "I can't. If he finds out, he'll get angry." "You don't know what he's like," she whispered. "And you know how I get if someone hurts you," Thomas said with a calm that chilled the blood. Elena barely held back her tears and just said, "Please stay. Just stay for a few days." When Julien came back into the room, he threw out a warning in a low but clearly intentional voice. "There are no secrets here, Thomas. Everything gets out, so don't even think about putting strange ideas in her head. She's fine, and you should watch your place." Thomas didn't answer. He stared at him, the way you look at an enemy who doesn't yet know he's already lost. Inside, he had already started to move the pieces, but he needed time. The last thing he would allow was for Elena to be more exposed because of an impulsive move. The following days turned into a tense routine. Thomas observed, memorized patterns, and silently collected evidence. He made sure Julien noticed his firm presence without falling for any provocations. The hardest part was hearing the muffled screams at night and seeing his sister crying in silence. The most cowardly thing, he thought, wasn't hitting a woman. It was making her believe that no one would believe her, that she was alone, that it was her fault. Julien was an expert at that. One afternoon, Thomas intercepted his sister as she went to take out the trash. He discreetly handed her a small piece of paper with a number, a trusted contact at the local prosecutor's office, someone who owed him a big favor. Elena took it, but seeing Julien watching her from the window, she quickly shoved it into her pocket without a word. Fear was still stronger than hope. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you think. As night fell, while Thomas pretended to sleep on the couch, he heard a dull thud and a muffled cry. He got up, silently, approached the closed door, and heard Julien say with contained fury, "If you say anything to that idiot brother of yours, I swear this time it won't just be your face." Thomas clenched his fists. It was no longer just about protecting his sister. It was a personal war. The next day, Thomas called his contact. He asked them not to send marked patrol cars. He only needed one thing: access to Julien's file. What he discovered left him cold. Julien had a prior domestic violence complaint from another woman. The case was closed. No witnesses, no evidence, no voice exactly what he was trying to repeat now. And just that night, Julien walked into the living room, looked directly at Thomas, and said, "I know what you're doing. You think because you wear a uniform you can come and destroy my home? If you try to take her out of here, I swear you won't walk out." Julien repeated in a venomous voice, raising his fist next to a knife, as the living room door creaked under the pressure of Tom S., who was advancing with his phone in hand, about to dial the contact at the prosecutor's office. Julien started to laugh and, taking a brutal step toward Elena, pressed the blade against the wooden table, causing a screech that echoed in the silence. Elena felt her heart in her throat. Tom S. stopped a meter away, his thumb trembling over the call button. His breath held, his military discipline battling against a protective fear. In an almost imperceptible movement, Julien flipped the table, spilling coffee and scattering papers on the floor. The blow was deliberate, a reminder that he was in charge there and that any distraction could cost them dearly. Thomas, despite his training, took a step back. He knew a sudden move could push Julien to use the weapon. Elena, her voice broken, asked if there was a way out, but Julien blocked the path, planting his foot on the papers and pointing mockingly that she couldn't move without his permission. The pressure became unbearable. Every second sounded like a tick-tock counting down to their defeat. Julien's face twisted into a sneer when he discovered the paper with the number hidden in Elena's pocket. He tore the paper away furiously and smashed Tom S.'s phone with a single punch, leaving it useless. "This is what you wanted to do," he spat. "No one comes in here unless I allow it." Tom S. felt his stomach clench. "I knew you were going to do this, but I never underestimated your desperation, Julien," he replied in a low voice. He waved the knife closer to Elena, and she whimpered, feeling her hope dissolve. Just as the situation reached its breaking point, Julien about to do something to Elena, Thomas saw his sister tremble, and for an instant everything was spinning out of control. With no proof, no communication, no plan B, he felt adrenaline flood every nerve. In his mind, he reviewed every possible step, every distraction maneuver he had learned in the army. But the presence of Julien, ruthless and sure of his impunity, reminded him that strength wasn't enough without backup. The room became an arena where he was the only one with no real power. It was in that instant that a firm knock was heard on the front door, followed by a voice that shouted, "Police, open up immediately." Julien backed away, confused, lowering the knife but keeping his eyes on Thomas and Elena. The soldier blinked away the moisture in his eyes and raised a finger, pointing to the hallway. "They're here. Don't touch anything." Julien growled but ran to the entrance to block it as two plainclothes officers entered with visible badges. The silence was broken, and the tension shifted to the doorway. The misogynistic and violent world Julien had built began to crumble with the arrival of the law. The officers proceeded calmly but with authority. One placed handcuffs on Julien, after informing him of the arrest warrant for domestic violence and assault with a deadly weapon. The other went to Elena to offer assistance and support. Julien whined, accusing them of betrayal and setting him up, but no complaint could save him. Elena, with a glassy-eyed stare, allowed herself a sigh of relief as she watched them take him away. Thomas approached and, holding his sister's hand, whispered that she was safe for the first time in a long time, and that this intervention was only the beginning of her freedom. In the following days, Elena received specialized medical and psychological care in a safe shelter. With Tom S.'s support, she agreed to give a detailed testimony to the prosecutor's office and attend every hearing. Julien, for his part, faced solid and renewed charges thanks to the reopened prior complaint. The investigation revealed patterns of systematic abuse. Justice proceeded logically, with restraining orders, forensic evaluations, and a potential sentence that finally seemed proportional to the harm caused. Natalia, the agent in charge, praised Elena's courage for speaking out and noted that her case would serve as an example for other victims. Weeks later, Elena started a sewing workshop at a local NGO and rediscovered her passion for designing clothes for older women. Thomas visited her every morning before his new responsibilities. With the veterans group, he dedicated part of his time to advising ex-military members on civilian reintegration. Elena got her voice and her autonomy back. She rediscovered her love for laughter and chats with friends that Julien had driven away. With every step, she rebuilt the dignity that had been stolen from her, and Tom S. watched with pride as his sister left fear behind. On the day of Julie Ann's first public hearing, Elena was present in the courtroom next to Tom S. Her eyes shone as she heard the judge emphasize the gravity of gender-based violence and announce preventive detention. Julie Ann, pale and defeated, couldn't maintain his arrogance. He understood that this time, neither silence nor threats would save him. When the gavel fell, Elena exhaled deeply. The balance of power had definitively tipped in her favor. As they closed this chapter, Tom S. and Elena walked together toward the future with a firm stride. He, knowing that even the most highly trained can be overcome by the cunning of evil. She, demonstrating that resilience is the most powerful weapon. They both understood that true victory was not in brute force, but in the ability to raise one's voice and seek help before everything turned to ruin. Her recovered dignity became her greatest medal, and the most inspiring example for those who are still silent.